Imagine this, you're exhausted but not sad, anxious but not afraid. Now imagine a pill that promises to fix that, not by numbing you, but by letting you choose them. Happiness on demand, calm without effort, motivation without doubt. That's what this pill claims to do, but that's not where the story ends. Beneath the original version is an upgrade, one that introduces new emotions, emotions that don't feel like feelings at all. And beneath that upgrade, there was another one, a version that was removed because it stopped being psychological and started becoming physical events. In this video, we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the original pill, what it promises and why it feels almost reasonable. Then we'll move into the plus version and the new emotions like humber and rage. And finally, we'll talk about the version you were never meant to see, the discontinued one. The disturbing part about this commercial is how normal it tries to look. Thalasin, the pill that promises you to feel the emotions you want. The first thing Thalasin does is reframe the problem. The commercial doesn't open by asking how you feel. It doesn't invite reflection or empathy or recognition. Instead, it behaves like something has already gone wrong with you. Emotion is introduced the same way a malfunction might be, like an irregularity that needs correction. Thalasin is not sold as relief, it's sold as regulation. The ad presents emotion as unstable, unpredictable, and inefficient, something that interrupts productivity, relationships, and clarity. Feeling too much can be framed as a burden, and feeling too little can be framed as a deficiency. Either way, emotion is positioned as a system that cannot be trusted to run on its own. This is what makes the commercial unsettling almost immediately. It never acknowledges what emotions might be meaningful. They are never framed as signals. They are never treated as personal. Instead, they are outputs. The solution Thalasin offers is not self-understanding or coping or even acceptance. It offers control. Measured, repeatable control. Emotions are no longer things you experience. They are things that you receive in appropriate doses at appropriate times. And the most disturbing part is how reasonable this sounds. The commercial speaks the language of modern self-improvement, balance, stability, and optimization. It implies that emotional inconsistency is something immature and something outdated, that something can and should be corrected with the right product. By the time the word Thalasin appears on screen, the viewer has already been quietly convinced of something dangerous, that your emotions are not you. They are a system you happen to inhabit, and the systems can be replaced. Once Thalasin establishes emotion as a problem, it introduces its evidence. Faces appear on screen, neutral, cleanly illustrated, and carefully framed. They are not presented as individuals. They exist solely to demonstrate. Each face performs an emotion the way the diagram demonstrates a function. Happiness, fear, sadness, and none of them feel lived in. The expressions are exaggerated just enough to be recognizable, yet stripped of personal detail. The smiles are too symmetrical, the eyes are too focused, the tension in the face feels deliberate, practiced, like something being held rather than felt. These are not people experiencing emotion, they are models. And models don't feel, they instruct. The faces don't ask you to empathize with them. They ask you to observe and to learn, to internalize what the correct emotional output should look like. This is the emotion as a visual standard, not as a personal state. It's subtle, but powerful. By presenting emotions this way, the commercial removes the idea that feeling is subjective. There is a right way to look when you are happy, a right way to appear afraid, a right configuration of muscles and eyes that qualifies as sadness. Anything outside that range is implied to be incorrect. This is where the discomfort deepens. Because once emotion becomes something that is demonstrated visually, it becomes something that can be evaluated, measured, compared, corrected. If your happiness doesn't resemble the model, then perhaps you aren't happy enough, or worse, you are happy wrong. The faces feel hollow not because they are frightening, but because they are instructional. They exist to replace your internal understanding of emotion with an external template. And that creates a quiet, creeping question. If emotions can be taught this way, if they can be standardized, if they can be displayed without context or consequence, then what exactly is Thalasin correcting? And more importantly, what happens to the parts of you that don't fit the model? At first, the emotions shown in the commercial are recognizable. You know what you're looking at, and you can name it without effort. But as the sequence continues, something subtle begins to fail. Happiness lingers too long, fear doesn't escalate when it should, and sadness appears without weight. These expressions are still labeled as familiar emotions, but they stop behaving like them. The faces hold their shapes as if they're waiting for approval, like someone posing for a photograph that never gets taken. That is not emotional intensity, it's emotional maintenance. The smiles stretch wider than comfort allows, yet never soften. The eyes remain open when they should blink. The muscles of the face stay engaged long after the moment has passed. It looks like less feeling and more like compliance. What the commercial quietly demonstrates is that neutral emotion is inconsistent, and inconsistency is framed as a flaw. Real happiness flickers. Real fear collapses into relief, and real sadness interrupts itself. But the faces shown here do none of that. They persist, and that persistence feels off. This is where the commercial begins to undermine the idea of emotional authenticity. It suggests that what you normally experience is only an approximation, a rough, unreliable draft of something better, something more stable, something that doesn't waver. The implication is clear. If your emotions don't look like this, then they are incomplete. And once that idea takes hold, dissatisfaction follows naturally. You begin to compare your internal experiences to the clean, unwavering expressions on the screen. You notice how messy your feelings are, how quickly they change, how often they contradict themselves. Thalasin doesn't need to say your emotions are broken. It simply shows you a version that looks more correct. Thalasin Plus is introduced not as a correction, but as an upgrade. The language shifts subtly here. The commercial no longer talks about balance or regulation. It begins to speak about capacity, about assessing emotional states that were previously unavailable, not because you failed to feel them, but because you were never designed to. This is where the product crosses a critical line. Thalasin Plus does not promise better emotions, it promises more. New emotional states appear, each labeled with unfamiliar names. They are not explained through analogy or experience. You are not told what they feel like, only that they exist and that Thalasin Plus can give them to you. The faces demonstrating these states are no longer neutral. They strain. Their expressions push past recognizability into something distorted, overstimulated, and tense. The muscles of the face appear overwhelmed, as if struggling to accommodate something too large to express. These are not emotions born from experience. They are inserted. The discomfort comes from how the commercial treats this as progress. The viewer is never asked whether these emotions are desirable, only whether they are accessible. The implication is that emotional limitation is something to be outgrown, not respected. Thalasin Plus reframes the human emotional range as obsolete, and in doing so, it introduces a new anxiety. What if you are missing something essential? What if everyone can feel things that you cannot? What if your emotional life is incomplete by design? This is how the product sells itself without ever showing harm. It doesn't threaten you with pain, it threatens you with insufficiency. By the end of this section, Thalasin is no longer about fixing a problem, and the faces on screen, strained, distorted, barely holding their shapes, quietly suggest that expansion might cost. But the commercial never addresses that. It simply moves on. Thalasin Plus does not expand emotion gently. It introduces new emotional states without reference, context, or explanation, as if they have always existed and you simply fail to access them. The commercial never asks whether these emotions are healthy, useful, or even survivable. It only presents them as available. Each name appears on screen like a clinical label, detached from any meaning, and yet the faces that accompany them suggest something deeply intrusive, something that does not belong inside of a human nervous system. Humber. Humber is introduced as a state of emotional heaviness, not sadness, because sadness implies loss, and not fatigue, because fatigue implies recovery. Humber appears to be a sustained internal pressure, as though the body is carrying emotional weight without knowing what it belongs to. The face demonstrating Humber looks burdened but unmoving. The eyes are open, aware but dulled, as if perception itself has slowed. What makes Humber disturbing is its permanence. This emotion does not resolve. It does not peak or release. It settles. The implication is that Humber replaces emotional fluctuation with endurance. You don't process feeling, you support it indefinitely. In this state, emotion is no longer something that moves through you. It becomes something you must hold up. Nage. Nage is the first emotion that feels actively hostile to the body expressing it. The face shown for Nage stretches into a grin that is too wide, too tense, and too deliberate. The eyes remain open and alert, but there's no warmth behind them, only fixation. The smile does not communicate joy, it communicates obligation. Nage appears to be enforced enthusiasm, an emotional state where outward positivity is amplified beyond internal consent. The muscles of the face are fully engaged, but the rest of the body appears rigid, as though bracing against the expression itself. This is not happiness. It is the requirement to appear pleased, regardless of internal state. Nage suggests a future where emotional labor is no longer social, it is chemical. The body is compelled to display engagement, compliance, and eagerness even when the mind is absent. And the most unsettling detail is how successful the expression is. It looks convincing, it looks appropriate, which raises the question, how often do we already mistake Nage for something genuine? Dorselessness. Dorselessness is presented with almost no explanation, and it doesn't need one. The face associated with it appears flattened, incomplete, dark. The eyes lack direction. The posture sags a little without collapse. There is no distress visible, but there is also no intention. Dorselessness feels like the removal of internal momentum. Dorselessness is the absence of pull, no desire forward, no resistance backward. The subject appears emotionally intact but inert, as if motivation itself has been chemically extracted. This is an emotion that doesn't interrupt daily function. It simply drains meaning from it. The commercial treats this as neutral, even beneficial, but dorselessness implies something terrifying, a state where you can continue living without ever wanting to. Loric. Loric is the most subtle and possibly the most dangerous of the four. The face demonstrating Ultra appears composed, almost dignified. The expression is controlled, the eyes are steady, the posture is upright. At first glance, it looks like emotional maturity, but nothing reaches the surface. Ultra appears to be emotional containment taken to its extreme. Feeling exists, but it is sealed behind a barrier. The subject is aware of emotion without allowing it expression, reaction, or consequence. This is not repression. Repression requires effort. Ultra looks effortless. The horror of Ultra is how well it could be rewarded. A person in this state would appear calm under pressure, unshaken by crisis, and unaffected by trauma. They would be praised for resilience, admired for composure. And slowly, quietly, they would stop reacting to the world at all. Together, these emotions reveal the true nature of Thalasin Plus. It is not expanding emotional experience, it is re-engineering emotional function. Each new state removes something essential: release, resistance, desire, vulnerability, and it replaces with stability, the kind of stability that looks impressive from the outside and feels hollow from within. And the commercial never warns you of that. It simply labels the emotions and moves on. The advertisement never acknowledges it, but there is another tier. After Thalasin Plus, there is Thalasin Plus Ultra. The absence is deliberate. Ultra is not framed as an improvement or an expansion. It is not compatible with the language of wellness, balance, or self-optimization. Where Thalasin Plus introduces new emotions, Ultra introduces events, physiological failures mislabeled as feelings. These are not really states of mind, they are states of the body. And unlike the earlier tiers, Ultra does not try to hide what it does. Vire is presented nowhere in the ad, but its effects are unmistakable when inferred. This emotion resembles panic stripped from urgency. There is no rush, no surge of adrenaline, only a slow, suffocating contraction. Breathing becomes shallow, movement feels unnecessary, and the body appears to be shutting down calmly. The face associated with Vire is slack, with the eyes remain alert and aware, but the terror is internalized, compressed, and sustained. The subject does not flee, they just remain still. Vire suggests a nervous system that has learned panic is futile. Identity drain. Identity drain does not distort expression, it erases ownership. The body continues to function normally. The subject stands, sits, looks, responds, but the timing is off. The reactions arrive late. Movements feel approved after they happen. The face is neutral but vacant. The eyes do not track intention, they follow motion. The implication is not dissociation but displacement. The self is no longer synchronized with the body it occupies. And this is not emotional numbness, it is emotional delay. You still feel, just never in time to claim it. Sleep repulsion. Sleep repulsion is not insomnia. The body rejects unconsciousness as a threat. Muscles remain engaged. The eyes refuse to close for long. There is no relief in rest, only vigilance without purpose. The subject appears exhausted yet alert. The mouth hangs slightly open, relaxed but unresponsive. Breathing is steady but shallow. The body refuses to power down, as if sleep itself has been chemically reclassified as unsafe. What makes sleep repulsion horrifying is not fatigue, it is endurance. The body continues without permission to stop. Smile lock. Smile lock is the most visibly violent of the ultra states. The face is frozen in a full smile, teeth exposed, cheeks raised, muscles clenched beyond comfort. Sweat beads down the forehead and the temples. The eyes, however, tell a different story. They are wide, and they are terrified. The expression does not match the experience. Smile lock is enforced presentation. The body broadcasts happiness while the nervous system is in crisis. The subject cannot neutralize their face, cannot stop signaling approval, even as panic escalates behind the eyes. It is the ultimate betrayal of expression. The face no longer reports truth. Ossive. Ossive resembles spacing out at first. Awareness drifts, focus collapses. But unlike dissociation, the body does not disengage. It becomes sealed. The pupils constrict sharply, reducing perception to a narrow tunnel. The mouth closes over, not clenching but smoothing. Skin grows where the opening of the mouth should be. This condition is known as flesh mouth. There are no lips, no entry, no exit. The subject cannot speak, cannot eat, cannot breathe through the mouth. Expression is permanently neutralized. Communication is rendered impossible, not by paralysis, but by anatomical revision. Ossive is not emptiness. It is containment of some sort. Thalasin ULTRA does not ask how you feel. It decides what the body will allow you to express. Thalasin ULTRA could never appear in the commercial, not because it's ineffective, but because it is too honest. Unlike the earlier tiers, Ultra does not simulate improvement. Its effects are irreversible, visible, and socially destabilizing. These are not emotions that can be reframed as growth. They leave marks. Smile lock exposes distress. Sleep repulsion exposes collapse. Identity drain exposes absence. And ossive exposes finality. There's no way to market these states without revealing the cost of emotional control. The commercial depends on ambiguity. It relies on the viewer projecting improvement onto what they see. Ultra removes that ambiguity. The body becomes the evidence, and the evidence is undeniable. There's also a deeper reason for the omission. Ultra suggests an endpoint. If emotions can be regulated, expanded, replaced, and finally embodied as malfunction, then there is nothing left to optimize. Ultra does not promise a better emotional life. It promises completion. The ad avoids Ultra because Ultra breaks the illusion that emotion is being improved. It reveals that emotion is being phased out, converted into predictable, manageable, biological states that no longer require interpretation, empathy, or consent. This Ultra product is therefore not a product for consumers. It is a solution for systems, and systems do not advertise what they intend to replace. Thalasin does not exist in a vacuum. For a product like this to be developed, approved, and broadcast on television, the world surrounding it must already be uncomfortable with emotion, not afraid of it, but tired of it. This is a society that views emotional unpredictability as inefficiency, one where mood is treated as interference and reaction time is more valuable than reflection. Grief takes too long. Anger disrupts workflow. Joy is distracting unless it can be scheduled. In this world, emotional regulation isn't self-care, it's compliance. And Thalasin fits perfectly into a culture obsessed with optimization. Sleep is tracked, focus is quantified, productivity is monitored, and emotion, once considered personal, becomes the final system to standardize. The commercial's calm tone suggests that emotional control is not controversial here. It's expected. The viewer is not being persuaded to change. They are being reminded to keep up. This explains why Thalasin Plus and Thalasin Plus Ultra exist at all. They are not luxury upgrades. They are responses to pressure. If everyone around you is calmer, flatter, more composed, if emotional restraint is chemically achievable, then natural feeling becomes a liability. Unmedicated emotion starts to look unprofessional. Unregulated grief looks irresponsible. Visible distress becomes suspicious. In this world, Thalasin isn't about fixing what's broken, it's about removing friction. And the most unsettling part is how familiar this logic feels. The commercial never explains how Thalasin functions, but its effects suggest a precise and deliberate mechanism. Rather than suppressing emotion, Thalasin appears to reroute it. In a normal nervous system, emotion arises from interpretation, a feedback loop between memory, sensation, and context. Feeling is messy because life is messy. Thalasin interferes with that loop. It disconnects emotional response from experience. Instead of reacting to the world, the body begins reacting to instruction. Emotions become predefined physiological scripts, facial configurations, muscle tensions, breathing patterns. And so, the mind no longer generates feeling, it just selects from an available set. Thalasin Plus expands this library. Thalasin Plus Ultra bypasses this entirely. Ultra-tier emotions suggest direct manipulation of the autonomic nervous system. Posture collapses, sleep is rejected, identity desynchronizes, expression overrides intention, the body stops asking permission from consciousness. Emotion becomes something that happens to you, not something you participate in, and this explains why Ultra states feel final. They are not emotional experiences, they are replacements for experience. And once the body learns to operate this way, there's no reason to return to the old system. Interpretation becomes inefficient, empathy becomes unnecessary, the self becomes optional. The commercial ends. There's no conclusion, no caution, no aftermath, and that may be the most disturbing detail of all, because Thalasin does not present itself as a choice, it presents itself as a correction, a way to align yourself with a world that has already moved on. And by the time Thalasin Plus Ultra exists, the idea of authentic emotion has become obsolete. Feeling is no longer something you discover, it is something that is administered, maintained, and displayed. The faces in the commercial are calm because they are finished. They are no longer negotiating with the world. They are no longer reacting, no longer conflicted. And for a moment that appears appealing, until you realize what's missing. There is no grief, but there is no love, no panic, but no urgency, no anger, but no resistance. Emotion still occurs, but it no longer belongs to the person experiencing it. It belongs to the system that decides when and how it should appear. Thalasin does not take away feeling, it takes away ownership. And that is why the commercial feels wrong. Not because it's showing something horrifying, but because it's showing something efficient, something calm, something complete, something that no longer needs you.